Yes, excellent. Hello, everyone. Let me just now stop this and share who we are. Yes, hello. So this is Jose Velasquez. I'm the Executive Director of the SCM program here at MIT. And with me, my colleague, Len Morrison, is our Career Officer and Alumni Relations Officer as well. So Len.
Well, welcome.
Yeah, welcome to the webinar. So for those that do not know what we are going to do here today is we are going to run a webinar related to the career services we offer here at MIT as part of the SCM program. Just before starting, I would like also to pass the microphone to my colleague that is now in Syracuse, Dr. Maria Sainz. So let me share the screen now, Maria. I don't have the share. That's it? Fantastic. Yeah. All right, Maria, yes.
Yeah, hello everybody. Welcome to our webinar. My name is Maria Jesus Sainz. I am the Executive Director of the Supply Chain Management Blended Master Program at MIT. I'm glad to be here sharing all this discussion with my colleagues there at MIT. And unfortunately, I cannot be there in Boston. I am in Syracuse representing the Supply Chain Management programs in front of other directors, right? So very briefly, the idea from my side is just to share with you, right, the blended program with the main features of our blended program, right? So I should continue, Josue, right? Okay. So yeah, very briefly, what is the Supply Chain Management Blended program? So then this is the program that integrates the online learning that is coming from the MicroMaster program together with the residential experiences at MIT on campus. So I'm not going to spend all the details because some of you maybe already know, but the idea is just to create all the fundamentals online during a period of from 15 to 18 months, and then those that want to enrich all the learning, on campus and physical, integration with all the students here in the residential at MIT, then they join our program. So typically the applications are taking place now, actually, just for you who want to continue this learning path from MicroMaster to the Supply Chain Management Master Program with MIT here in Boston. Then the idea for you is to apply the next deadline that is taking place just this month. So actually it's taking place on March 28th, right? So then once we select our students, then we work with them more around the research proposal, and then we start in August just to work around all what we call the pre-work from August to January, working around this capstone project, working in a couple of students with advisors. Then in January, you join Boston, then you work with us, you select your electives, you decide which path you want to follow in terms of a huge portfolio of options you can follow. You continue working with your project, and then you graduate with MIT master degree around the beginning of June. Yes, I wanted to share with you this very high-level highlight because then Len is gonna talking a little bit more about all the details about the career service in the blended program. But please remember, the deadline for application is March 28th, and please get in contact with us for whatever kind of doubt or whatever kind of question or suggestion will be more than welcome. Yeah, I pass you, guys.
Excellent. So thank you, Maria. Thank you very much for the explanation. We know now that we are in the process of receiving applications for the blended program. For the residential, we still have one round more, but it's very important if you are a MicroMasters holder, take this last call to really apply and be part, hopefully, of the SCM family. We are fine, right? Excellent. So let's now discuss a little bit more what we're going to be doing now with you here today. So actually, the webinar is designed by Len here, who is the greatest expert in all these career services. So we are very lucky to have Len here with us. And just before passing the floor and the microphone to Len, I wanted just to give a very brief overview about the programs. So just in case you're a little bit lost, what exactly we do here in the yes, it's here in the SCM program. So what is the Supply Chain Management Master's Program? So we praise ourselves to be the best in the world in supply chain management since the inception of the program. It's an interesting program that combines very interesting experience in the Center for Transportation and Logistics, like all the research that is developed here by the top class researchers and faculty that are shaping actually the field of logistics and supply chain management in the world. So many of the things that you're going to be learning in these courses are coming from this research, innovations that we are working day to day with companies and also with other organizations in the world. Now, there is, of course, a distinction. Like specifically in my role, I'm going to be taking over, starting this July, August, the residential program. So this is the part of the master program that probably some of you are quite familiar. It's been there forever, almost. The inception of the program here is a 10-month program. And in this 10-month program, we actually look for early career supply chain professionals. So these are mainly practitioners that would like to go back to school, receive, of course, an advanced training, education, and supply chain management in the best university in the world, and then later go back to the industry. And the idea is to help them boost this career once they are back to the industry world. Now, we usually have students that have working experience, definitely. That varies between 3 to 8 years. And definitely, at least, is required to have 2 years of experience. This is a key element in the SCM program, any of the residential blended programs, mainly because it's important to have a group, a cohort of students that can share their experiences and also learn the concepts they're going to be learning in the classrooms as well through different practices. So having experience is more than welcome, because this brings much more value for the discussions and also for, in general, the experience of the whole program. Now, as any program at MIT, of course, it's important to have quantitative skills. In this part, of course, we go and take a look at the transcripts, your experience in your undergraduate studies. We look for candidates that will have, in some way, some college level education of basic math courses like calculus, linear algebra, probability statistics, because this is the type of tools we're going to be using in many of the supply chain management and logistics problems that you're going to be facing also here at MIT, but also at the same time in the industry. Right. So usually students come, they spend 10 months at MIT, the fall taking certain type of courses, then January have the IAP scale conference, bringing all the students. So there are huge experience here. The important thing to mention here is that in the spring, both cohorts are now blend in the SCM program. So blended students are also residential students to just define finally the SCM cohort that will hopefully graduate in June. In this case, in 2019. In your case, that you're applying 2020, hopefully. Now, in terms of the blended, Maria already gave a very nice intro on the program, but this is a different program in terms of the audience, the type of students we are looking for. So while in the other we are talking about early career professionals, supply chain professionals, in this case, this is designed for learners who have earned already a MicroMaster's credential, right? Also, this is a different path to get an SCM degree, MIT degree. Now, this is mainly directed to what we call the non-traditional students or candidates, right? And just to mention some examples, practitioners with vast experience in supply chain management. So usually blended students tend to be 4 or 5 years older than the residential class. Of course, this is not a requirement, but in general, we also look for candidates that even if they do not have the training in quantitative education, or specifically in engineering education, if they have completed the MicroMasters, this is a good, let's say, indicator that you have good quantitative skills to apply for the SCM program. We also aim for candidates that are in different countries in which GMAT, GRE are not available. Right, so this is always a challenge many times for the residential candidates. Now, in this case, we offer the alternative to do the MicroMasters and then apply for the blended. Now, let's mention, if you are a residential student and you don't have also the availability to apply for these Gmat GRE exams, you can complete 3 courses of the MicroMasters, and then that makes you eligible. Of course, we have certain bars in terms of the scores you need to get, but you may waive the requirement of the Gmat and then apply also for the residential. So anyway, this is just to give you an idea, just in case you were a little bit lost with this webinar and what exactly we were talking about. So this is the SCM program at MIT. And we are going to focus now on discussing the career services we have for both blended and residential. So I would like now to pass, again, the microphone to my colleague here, Len Morrison.
Thank you, Josue, and welcome, everyone. It's a pleasure to chat with you about what I think is an absolutely outstanding program. When you join, whether it's this year or next year, I will be your career coach. I'll be the connector. I'll be the individual who works only with you to build the bridge between you and opportunities. Those opportunities may be positions, they may be very selective organizations, it may be alumni. Regardless, the focus will be on the opportunities that we can bring to you in the classroom. And I work exclusively with this population, whether it's residential or blended. You have 100% of my time, and I live where you live. I am 10 feet away from where you are all day long, and that's frankly in the field of career services, that's unheard of. So it's an enormous benefit. But today I want to talk about why we're different. I want to talk about the outcomes, which are absolutely stellar, and I also want to provide you with some advice and take some questions. But there are 3 things that distinguish our program. And I want you to, think about these 3 things when you're applying. The first is the return on investment, the value proposition. It's significant. Secondly, our high-touch career services, and third, our community. And I'm going to go into each of these specifically. So I'll begin with the value proposition. And and frankly, there has never been a better time to be enrolled in this program.
Let me help you with the microphone.
Yeah, sliding down.
Yeah,
okay,
that's better. Okay, my pleasure.
As Josue and Maria mentioned, this is an accelerated program. 10 months, less time away, less opportunity cost. It's a powerful way to jumpstart your career. In terms of affordability, compared to an MBA program, you're doing it in half the time. Less debt, particularly so with the blended program. What many of you might not realize is the STEM program, we are STEM eligible. So as a STEM eligible program, our graduates who come from other countries are eligible to work in the US for 3 years before H-1B sponsorship. That is an enormous benefit. It is the primary reason why, if that is important to you to work in the US, to consider the residential program. And that is the biggest distinction between the blended program and between the residential program. And as you can see, you'll find as I'm talking, I want to compare in many ways our master's in supply chain with top tier MBA programs, and I put Sloan in that peer group. The distinction is that 100% of last year's graduates from the residential program worked in the US.
So we're going to make a change of microphone.
Okay.
Sorry, just 1 sec. Oh, don't worry, and then just hold it.
Great. All right. Thanks. So I just want to repeat that in case you didn't catch that, which is for all students in the residential program who wanted to work in the US, whether they were international students or not, 100% secured employment within the US. And that's something that no MBA program can offer. And I think that is an enormous distinction. As we focus on these employer outcomes, I want to go to the next slide, which will give you an indication of some of our core partners and employers from not only this year's class, the class graduating in a few weeks, but also it indicates some of the positions that these graduates are going into. As you can see, these are top companies. These represent global powerhouse organizations in professional services, in technology, as well as in packaged goods. I think as you compare master's programs and you're focused on this return on investment, these are organizations that are recruiting at the best MBA programs in the country, and they are also recruiting here. We have so many alums at all of these organizations. The other thing I want to, make you aware of, because I'm sure this is top of mind when you think about return on investment, is the compensation upon graduation. Now, earlier this week, on Tuesday, U.S. News and World Report published the top business schools in the U.S. for 2020. The MIT Sloan School was tied for third place with Harvard Business School, and I believe with Wharton. When you read that report, you'll notice that the compensation for the Sloan graduates was $159,000, base plus signing bonus. Our compensation is exactly the same. So not only are we offering a program that is half the time, but you're coming out with positions, opportunities to work in organizations that are the equal at the same level of compensation. So, when I spoke about return on investment and value proposition, that is significant. And as you can see from this slide, the positions that many of our students are going into, these are senior positions. These are, clearly middle management roles. And demand is high. So fall recruiting for us is as aggressive as the NBA draft, it feels like. We have 35 or 40 companies that are coming on campus in a matter of weeks, the vast majority of which are represented by alumni who are coming in to say, I want to hire more people like myself in these organizations. So it's a pretty stressful time. Just to give you a sense of how this year's class is doing, as a result of our fall recruiting, just over half the class had offers before the winter break. And I think that's significant. Some of these firms up here are just a few, but others include top organizations, highly desirable. It might be Tesla, Kraft Heinz, Bayer, BCG, Walmart, Capgemini, Facebook, Microsoft, Dell, Adidas. These are other organizations that are recruiting students now, literally this week, last week. So obviously, when I said there's never been a better time to enroll in the supply chain management program, this class would clearly attest to that. Next slide would be fine. So the other key pillar, in addition to the return on investment, is the personalized career coaching that you would receive from me. I've been in this field of career advising with business students, MBA students, for over 20 years. I understand employer expectations. I've worked with literally thousands of MBA students as they prepare to enter the workforce. And one thing that I focus on, and I realize is exceedingly important, is early engagement. So almost immediately after you're accepted into this program, you're going to hear from me, and I'm going to be asking you. I'm going to be asking to see your resume. I'm going to be asking to see your LinkedIn profile. I'm going to be helping you before you're here to develop the toolkit so that when you're arriving in mid-August, you're going to be in a position to represent yourself in the best possible light to organizations, because recruiting happens very, very early, surprisingly early. Also, self-assessment. I'm a certified Clifton Strengths coach, and the Clifton Strengths model focuses on natural talents, the discovery of natural talents, what those innate talents that, if invested in, become exceedingly strong, powerful strengths that you can bring to the workforce. I want to help you uncover those strengths, and I focus on the Clifton Strengths Finder as, I think, the best tool. Not only does it inform self-awareness, but most importantly, it helps you tell your story. And I think that's what employers are looking for. when employers recruit from this program, they're not questioning your technical skills. They're focusing very heavily on the soft skills. And that's an area where we put an enormous amount of effort. And self-assessment is a core foundation to developing superior soft skills.
Let me just steal your mic for a sec. Yeah. So now that you're talking about that, we have a question, and maybe it's convenient now to answer, Elaine. It says, is Gmat score important to get a good job in this program?
I would say if you have been admitted into this program with the Gmat score that you've achieved, Gmat score is not an issue that comes up. Now, that's not to say that students who score exceptionally high don't add it to their resume. But for the most part, employers view everyone in the class as capable and possessing those cognitive skills to succeed in the workforce. So my honest opinion is that there are no material distinctions in Gmat scores in the eyes of employers. So the answer there would be no.
All right. Yeah. No more questions.
So as we move forward here, I do want to also address the importance of career strategy. Strategy is you come in with particular goals. You have ideas about where you'd like to work, functional roles, organizations. I'm going to work with you to achieve that. I'm going to help you develop and uncover those contacts, to reach out to those contacts. You will have a tailored experience in how you engage with potential employers. And with each student, it's different. So I look forward to that. To me, that's one of the greatest benefits of the role that I'm in. Lastly, I want to speak to you about some of the programming that we do. We do very tailored programs for you. And it happens very early, and it focuses on, to a high degree, the development of soft skills. So for example, we'll bring in speech consultants to help refine your presentation skills, your elevator pitch, how you tell your story. That's particularly important. You have the gifts, you have the quantitative, the technical skills, you have the experience. How do you sell it? How do you communicate it? So we put a high degree of emphasis on that. We also focus, obviously, on interview preparation, not just behavioral interview preparation, but we'll bring in consultants from McKinsey and top consulting firms to provide case study preparation, because we know if you're going for top consulting firms, you've got to be ready to understand the case preparation model. And we have resources and consulting clubs within the program that drive towards that.
Another question. So does it work, the microphone? We'll see. Okay. So for people who have been admitted to the program, how early can they engage with you?
That's a great question, because I'm sure if you've been admitted to the program, you'd like to be interviewing with companies right now. So right now, my focus is working on the current students that are graduating in early June. However, I want to hear from you. I want to see your resume. I want to have the opportunity to connect with you, to understand what your strategy is, and to provide support in the interim between now and when you arrive. And there's a lot of things that we can do, a lot of which I mentioned. Particularly if you're interested in consulting, I want to provide you with the resources to help you prepare for the case interview. And that's an advantage, frankly, that you don't have over some of the MBA students who are in a 2-year program. So we want to begin that early. But there's no reason why you can't have a fully developed resume, LinkedIn profile, and cover letters before you arrive.
Yep. Just to add into that, I mean, for the residential students that are entering mainly in the summer, you start working with them almost immediately.
Right. I would say April, even May,
even earlier. Yeah, exactly.
Very early.
And same with blended, right? So blended also get the advice and support in what you are just discussing on the resume and the LinkedIn profile, and immediately we will try also to run some webinars so that they can engage.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. So much of it is is driven by the students themselves, the degree to which they wish to connect with me, I'm here. So, that's, as I mentioned, this personalized career coaching, this high-touch concierge level of career services is something that you're paying for. And it's something that we're very confident that we deliver on.
We have another question. Says, do the companies sponsoring capstone projects offer job replacement? We know that this happens, right? It's actually an opportunity for the companies to invest in potential candidates to get a job in their companies. That's why also they are doing it. Of course, also because they want to get some content out of the project. So this may happen, right? But I understand that the network of companies that can hire is even beyond just the capstone project.
Oh, it's way beyond. But capstone projects are a great opportunity for students to get their foot in the door with an organization that can actually see their efforts. Now, oftentimes these are year-long capstone projects, so the companies are, you're trying to balance the timing of when the company has openings and balancing it with when the project is advancing to a point where the company can assess the contributions being made. So it's a little bit of a fine line there, but every year we have students who are being hired by their capstone companies. So that's a very valuable offering for students and for partner companies.
Yeah, just to mention, like in the case of blended students, they come with their own project, right? And many of these projects, of course, are with the companies that they are currently working at that time. And this also helps, right? Because in a way, they develop content for the company. And many of these companies are actually funding them to do the residential part in the spring. And many times even this content can be transformed into new projects, new ideas, new positions within the organizations as well. So this is also something to mention. The idea is that you work even with your current company, but the idea is that if you go back to the same company, you also get a boost in your career there.
Right.
And this is what you should be aiming for after you take the blended as well.
Yeah, and that's the advice on the front end as well, to let your company know what you're planning on doing, the investment that you're making and that they're making, because you would naturally expect a return on that investment when you return to your company if you're in the blended program.
So, Len, can I mention something from here? Can you hear me?
Of course, go ahead.
Yes, very quickly, just to highlight for the blended, but also for the residential, that one of the beauties of our program is the network itself and the sources of relationship with companies coming from many different angles, right? So we have a great network of alumni that is working in the best companies with the best position in supply chain management. We are really engaged just to contribute in our program. So they come to recruit our students, but also from the connections that the Center of Transportation and Logistics at MIT is having, right? With all the different companies, chief supply chain officers that we are working with for many research projects, many actions. So then the network is so important compared with other programs in supply chain management. I wanted to highlight this because I think it was important.
That's absolutely true, Maria. The third pillar of what makes us distinctive.
Oh, sorry.
Let's introduce the next slide. So thank you, Maria.
That was a great lead in, Maria. The third pillar, and perhaps the most important pillar, because it drives so much else. It drives so much other success, is the community that you'll be joining. And by community, I don't just mean classmates, but obviously with classmates, you'll be joining students who are so highly accomplished, so experienced. But yet what I've found is unique among the class, and each class, is their sense of humility, that they're humble. They understand where they have great strengths, but yet at the same time, they're willing to support one another. And we see that in the collaboration and the bonding and the lifelong network that results. But most importantly, when we focus on community, we're talking about the alumni. And the alumni base from SCM is unlike any other that I've seen in my 24 years of career services. They drive the success of our program. They are reaching out to me already to build their fall recruiting program, to set dates. They're coming on campus for career conversations. They're coming on campus to conduct mock interviews, interview preparation. They're hosting site visits. On Sunday morning, we're all flying to the West Coast to meet with a dozen different companies. And 11 of the 12 visits, it's driven by alumni who have said, I want to introduce this class to my organization. So they are the most powerful resource, and they are at your disposal. These are individuals who are willing to spend, in some cases, I heard just recently, 90 minutes to talk to a student about their industry, their functional role, their interview process at a particular company. I mean, that's unheard of. It's a powerful endorsement, frankly, of our program, but they shared the same experience that you're going to participate in. They joined a cohort. They went on a trek. They benefited from the top-notch faculty here. They benefited from that career boost that they experienced when they graduated. So when they come back to recruit, they know what they're going to get. They've taken the classes that you'll be taking. They know the skills that you're acquiring, and so that high degree of confidence allows them to represent us very well within their organizations and to support for referrals. And this extends across the globe. I mean, we have hundreds of alums in countries across the globe that are reaching out to us to say, listen, how can I help? How can I hire? How can I offer my advice and my support to current students in the blended and the residential program? So there's no distinction between these programs. When you graduate, you are a member of the MIT SCM class of 2020. There's no distinction in the minds of anyone between a residential student and a blended student. It's merely the format in which it was delivered prior to arrival. Once you're here, it's the same experience. So this community offers a bridge to employment, and that's something that certainly I take advantage of. The other element of the community, as you see on the screen, is the Ctl Partners, and these are exchange partners. These are global organizations, the largest organizations in the globe that pay, in many cases, hundreds of thousands of dollars to be an official partner. And one of the benefits that they receive is, in addition to research and executive education, they are able to source talent from our program. So, that opens up a whole other slew of global companies that might not necessarily have alumni in them, but we have leadership supporting us at the highest levels. So clearly, Ctl Partners are an enormous bump, and one of them is I think it's the world's largest chemical company, BASF. They just extended an offer today. I actually was accepted today by a student in our program. So just one example of how these partners are playing a very important role. So my role, again, this bridge to alumni, is to essentially bring the alums and the companies into the SCM lab here. They're here every day, almost in the fall, at lunch, info sessions, coffee chats, career conversations, mock interviews, networking presentations, whatever it takes. That's how the bridge is developed. So, and then lastly, but certainly not least important, are the benefits of the wider MIT community, which represents, clearly all of the student clubs that are associated with the university. It might be the consulting club, the transportation club, the operations club, product management club, the career fairs. Every February we have a European career fair where over 100 companies from the EU are on campus to recruit MIT talent. And that's where many of our students are at, particularly from the blended program if they wish to return home. So you are in a position to take advantage of an enormous community that is here waiting for you.
Let me just interrupt very quickly. There is a question more related with the requirements to apply for the blended. It says, I already have a MicroMaster certification. What is the minimum experience required? So the minimum is the same. We are asking for 2 years of working experience, ideally more, right? Because this will give you more benefits, not just for the work in the industry to get better positions and offers, but at the same time to bring even more value for the community, right? For the SCM class 2020. But yeah, the requirement is the same as in the residential, 2 years at least of working experience. I'm sorry, Elaine, go ahead.
No, that's right. Next slide. So I do want to talk to you about the sort of the distinction that I see between the supply chain management program and most top tier MBA programs. And clearly I mentioned before, one of the most significant is the opportunity as a STEM program to have, if you're in the residential program, 36 months of work authorization. Now that's not applicable to the blended program, but for those interested in the residential program, that's an enormous advantage. Secondly, the students in our master's program, generally, we have a higher degree of experience, more experience in our program. The classes are smaller. You know, Sloan across the way, they're 200 feet away from us, but they have over 400 in a class. You have 40 in a class. That's an enormously different experience, and one that we think adds immensely to the outcomes here. We also have many fewer career changers. Most MBA programs have a high degree of career changers. No, people who are coming to our program in most cases have very interesting and significant supply chain experience that they're leveraging. They may move into different functional roles, but they know they want supply chain, and companies look for that. Lastly, I think what's interesting is the degree to which students are securing employment because of our program. So, most MBA programs, a fairly significant percentage of graduates will secure their job because of personal networking. Well, here, we really believe that we have the connections and the community that will help drive employment for you. So, granted, you're certainly welcome to develop your own opportunities through family, friends, and previous colleagues, but we want to give you a very rich array of organizations across sectors from which you can seek meaningful employment. So those are some of the most important distinctions between an SCM degree and an MBA, not the least of which is the very rapid return on investment at the same top organization. So, my advice for many of you is, before you arrive, begin to cultivate your network. Let people know once you're accepted where you're going. Let them know in a matter of a few short months, you're going to be back talking to them, exploring opportunities within their organization. But it's a great way to touch base with perhaps many people who are in your network who you've lost touch with, to say, listen, I wanted to keep you up to date. I'm heading to MIT for this accelerated supply chain master's degree, and I'm going to want to talk to you about opportunities while I'm in the program. So a great touch point. Secondly, I want you to begin early refining your LinkedIn profile, refining your resume, and beginning to think about how you want to position and package yourself and your experiences. And I can work with you on that. We have plenty of resources. I will help to a great degree with that. Also be thinking about exploring certain employers that you might be interested in, because when you arrive, especially if you're in the residential program and you're arriving August 15th, last year we had companies that were recruiting in July. Now think about that. You're not even here and the company is trying to recruit you. In this instance, it was a top tier consulting company, global consulting company, that wanted the resume book in mid-July. That's why we start early. But the majority of companies are coming in September, right after Labor Day, right after orientation, and it goes pretty much full speed ahead into November, and then it takes a dip, and it's picking up significantly now as companies are opening up positions ready for June graduates. So we have basically a cycle. Those companies that can anticipate their hiring needs 9 months in advance are aggressively coming to campus in September and October. Others that are not in a position to do that, equally strong employers, in fact, the majority, are now reaching out to say, okay, we see some openings coming. We need to get some great talent. So it operates on a 12-month cycle, constant hiring, and you're the beneficiary of that. My last comment would be around those who are interested in consulting. As I mentioned, consulting, to excel in consulting interviews in the case, does require significant preparation. So we want to identify you early, and we want to give you the resources so you'll be prepared. That's the That is perhaps one disadvantage that that you have if you're thinking about consulting and you wait. It becomes more difficult. It becomes more challenging because it takes a tremendous amount of time and effort. So we want to work on that early. But in summary, I want to leave you with the 3 biggest reasons why you should be considering this program from my perspective. 1, the return on investment. It's outstanding. 2, high touch, personalized career advising, career strategy. And 3, the powerful community that you're joining.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Len. We have one more question. What are the opportunities for students to incubate their ideas into a startup? I don't know if you have experience in that.
We do have students who are interested in startups, and interestingly enough, we're on the 3rd floor of the Muckley building, and on the 1st floor of the building, by which every student passes by, is the Martin Center of Entrepreneurship, and the Martin Trust Center is the incubator for MIT.
Just in the
first floor. So we walk by it every day.
Yeah.
And so there's an incredibly rich array of startups and opportunities to get connected.
So let me add to that. I mean, MIT is like Wonderland, right? So you have tons of things happening, a lot of innovations, a lot of research, a lot of colleagues that are coming, working to shape the future of their disciplines in one way or the other. And there are tons of opportunities that are happening all the time. In this very minute, probably new Nobel Prizes are being born here at MIT, or ideas, right? I have projects like that. So I'm advising, for instance, a couple of students that are working on small firms, supply chain management for small firms in developing countries. And they came up, the 3 of them came up like 2 months ago or 1 month ago with the idea of building, an application that will serve these markets in developing countries. And they actually are pushing this to start building the startup on this. They will do it during the process of being here, working directly on the supervision of researchers, postdocs here, getting support also with the entrepreneurship center that is in the 1st floor, and also working together, even students from the same class, but also bringing people from different classes as well, or different programs. So this is also part of the MIT environment. So we have courses in which you're going to be sharing the classroom with the students from different programs as well. And this brings also a lot of value. You're going to have also certain level of flexibility to choose electives in a way that you will shape, again, what is the focus that you want to take in your future, in your careers. And you will have the support, of course, of the executive directors here, Maria and myself, and also here, Len, who is super experienced in all of this advice. He actually gives advice to also the staff here at SCM. And I believe this is a great opportunity for all of you. Anyway, so before just closing, I don't know, we have more questions? No, Robert? We are all fine. So if you have any further questions, inquiries, feel free to reach out to us. So we will post this on the web as well with the slides, I understand. And we have also the emails. I will show you now the slide with the emails in case you want to reach out to us. But maybe some final words. Why don't we invite Maria to say some few words? She's been online from Syracuse. So go ahead, Maria.
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah. So yes. I mean, as Len has explained very well, we have a great group of students, a great group of professionals, but inside the class, but outside the class. And this is one of the beauties that we are having. And then we can leverage both in having classes from these experienced professionals, but also having recruiting, giving back to the community. They for example, came again to our research activities. So then I will highlight the network. And I would like also to finish with the again, the deadline for the application for the blended program. Those that have already taken the CF exam on the past February 22nd, now it is time for apply. Please don't hesitate to contact us, Robert or me, just to solve whatever kind of question or doubts. I am here just for you in order to be able to finally apply for March 28. Thank you very much, guys.
Excellent. Thank you, Maria. Thank you very much. So we have one other question, Len. It says, do SCMR residential students go into tech companies in tech leadership roles in companies like Amazon, Apple, or any other e-commerce company?
That's a great question, and they absolutely do. In fact, last year, Amazon was our #1 employer. I believe they hired 8 out of a class of 40 for a variety of roles across their retail, logistics, AWS business lines. Apple was #2. So when I think of tech, I think our strongest representation is within the tech organizations. Google hired last year. They're currently interviewing 11 of the 40 students this week, last week, and flying finalists out. Well, they're in the process of that now. So, you know, as I mentioned, I want to reiterate this in parting comments. If you're admitted into this program, and I hope you all apply, if you're admitted into this program, you can take the risk of employability off the table. That is not a risk. The challenge will be finding the right opportunity for you. And that's where the strategy comes in. That's where the self-assessment, the self-awareness comes in. But there is no issue regarding employability. The other metaphor that I'd use is it's like a buffet table, an endlessly long buffet table. How do you participate in all of this in such a short period of time? That's the biggest challenge that students have. And that's why it's MIT.
No, that's great. I'm happy that you're mentioning that, Len. I fully agree, right, with my colleagues. And in general, when we receive the students in the orientation sessions, we have residential and blended. We, of course, offer all these services, make them very clear. We start working together. But at the end, this becomes also a self-managing leadership, right? Like we pay close attention in the admission process to select the best students that have the highest potential in leadership, you know, communications, presence, and also like a high aim, you know, to really aim high in their lives to really make a change and create impact in the world, which is part of the mission of MIT. We want you to innovate. We want you to take risks, as Len just said it, and this is also part of what we are offering here. So from our side, you're going to get all the support one way or the other. There is, of course, the distinction that we mentioned at the beginning between residential and blended. The residential get the OPT, their chance to work in the US, mainly because they spent the 1 year in the USA. But apart from that difference, both cohorts are going to be part or are part of the single SCM class, and they receive all the support, all the guidance, all the opportunities to work and get also chances to extend their careers and really create impact in the industry and corporate world. So with that, I would like to thank Len. Thank you very much for preparing all these materials. Thank you, Maria. I know that you're busy now representing the SCM in the conference, but we're very happy that you could join us. And Robert is always the mastermind. I don't know if you want to show at least your hand, Robert. So Robert was just here telling us exactly if everything was good or not. And let me just finalize the session showing the contact. I'm sure that many of you know it. We are not that difficult to find in Google. But in case you want to know a little bit more, feel free to reach out, of course, to our Career Development and Alumni Relations Officer, Len Morrison here, myself, and also Maria. And I'm sure even if you reach out to Robert and Justin, they will be more than happy also to help you. So again, thank you so much. And we hope to see you soon. So apply for the programs. Take care.